This week on the Orange Box podcast, we give our predictions for the upcoming rumored Nintendo Direct. Mario Kart 64 it got a native PC port, the DBrand Switch 2 situation, and more. All of this tonight, but first, on to that beautiful bean intro. Welcome to the place where PC and console gaming talk combine. This is the Orange Box Podcast, episode 90. I am your host, the man with the 17.06 millisecond input response time, Nathan, also known as the Frozen Gamer 87. And joining me, as always, the man who, being a PC monitor, has a 0.18 input response time, Justin, better known as I Am Zaracon. How you doing today? How's your week been?
It's been a week of resolutions, but then just more problems and complications. So last week I mentioned how I got the MacBook up and running, but then I messaged you and said there was a problem with the operating system with the OS. And so essentially what happened was I was trying to use Pro Tools and use the virtual instruments, and one of the instruments said it needs to be verified. So I said, that's fine, I'll go and verify it. But then it needed to access the website, and I was like, okay, that's fine. But the problem is it had to use the browser, and Safari was so outdated that it couldn't be used. So I said, all right, that's fine, I'll go ahead and just update it. But then I tried updating it, and it was like, yeah, no dice, bro. It's because of the fact that your operating system is just so old, it can't be updated. And I was like, all right, let me see if there's any new updates I can add on here. I tried going to the Apple store. It said, hey, you're all good, you're already updated. No updates here. And I'm just like, this is gonna be a long week, isn't it? So I thought about, I was wondering if I could possibly try to update the version of OS X that I had. And I know that before, when I had when I was using it long ago, I had to update it, and I didn't want to do it this time because I really just didn't want to spend money on it. But I know that you could buy like a flash drive from Apple, and you can get a new OS update for it. And so I said, fine. I was going to try doing it this time, but I didn't see anything like that. And then the other issue I saw was, I said, fine, I'll make my own flash drive myself and do it that way. The problem was, you had to download the new OS directly from Apple itself. So, and the problem is, I can't download it directly from Apple because my Mac isn't just accessing the internet at all. So I thought about it, and even though I'm very cautious when it comes to using someone else's hard drive or connecting it to like my internet, because even though it's not, it's not to their benefit if they, have malware on it and they sell it to someone, I just don't trust people's like old hard drives if I don't know them personally. Right. So I said, I'll take a gamble on it. Also, it's a MacBook, so I'm not going to trust it to like have too many, or I'm not going to trust to have that many viruses. So I just like reinstalled the hard drive that was originally on the MacBook I bought, and I just downloaded the new version. Because fortunately, Apple now doesn't seem to be charging you for updates if you want to update to like a newer version of OS X. So I was like, cool, I will download it. Yeah, I was surprised about that too. So I like downloaded it, put it on a flash drive, took that one out, put the other the other drive back into the computer, plugged it in. It took me like several times to like figure out how to get it to work, but I got the update running, fully upgraded the operating system. Then I went ahead, upgraded all the other stuff I need to do, and then finally I was able to get my instruments working again once I could verify, that I am the owner of the of the software. So yeah, that's working now. Doing some tinkering around with that, and it's, well, I mean, for one thing, it's just weird trying to get used to the Mac layout in general, but also trying just to remember how to use Pro Tools and like how I had all my virtual instruments set up and stuff. So doing that stuff like that. So I'm getting back into learning everything. Working on one project which you of course know about, and that's I've got some progress going on with that.
Nice.
But yeah, it's going pretty well on that end. But so that's been resolved. However, Sunday I was trying to finish up the rest of my initial recordings with my my current GPU before I put in the other one, and I did all that. That was fine. However, after I put in the new GPU, my computer would not boot. It would not boot into the operating system, and it went past the initial splash screen for the motherboard and stuff, right. And after that, it just froze. And so I'm like, that's weird. Let me try rebooting it. Nothing happened. I said, let me go into the BIOS, see if there's anything I need to do there. It asked me which drive I wanted to boot from, which was weird because I've never had that happen before. So I said, here's the drive, here's the SSD, boot from there. And it said, all right, cool, we'll do that. So I was like, all right, cool, go ahead. It restarted, and it did the same thing again. And I'm not certain what the issue is right now, because it doesn't seem like... I'm pretty certain this wouldn't necessarily be a problem with the graphics card itself if it can't just boot up. And I mean, it's displaying out because otherwise it wouldn't be displaying at all, I would imagine. So like, I haven't done too much beyond that, but I'm going to try to eventually get back and figure out what the issue could be. I mean, push comes to shove, I could just see if swapping out the other GPU works or not. But yeah, I'm not certain. I mean, I might also try reseating the SSD. I mean, I doubt that's an issue because I didn't really touch that at all.
Right.
But I'll see what that is. But yeah, that's essentially everything that has happened thus far this week.
I mean, even though you were able to at least get to the BIOS, did you... I mean, a couple things that I would check. First of all, would just make absolutely sure that the GPU is seated correctly, that it's not like partially in but partially not, because of course, that gave me issues obviously recently. So I mean, like, I would even just take it out completely, push it back in, make sure it's firmly in there, and then just try booting it up again, see if that works. Other thing would of course be checking the RAM sticks, making sure that that nothing got jarred loose or whatever. Those would be the two things I would suggest first and foremost to try and see if either of those fixes the problem. The next thing I would suggest beyond that would be, if you haven't updated your BIOS recently, going ahead and downloading the boot or the file from their website for that, and then just flashing the BIOS. I mean, depending on which motherboard you have, a lot of them will have a flash button on there to where you can do that. I mean, the fact that you can access the BIOS, you might not even... I guess you wouldn't actually need to use the flash button, because you would just be able to access the BIOS and update it directly there. But either way, you would probably want to load the file on and then just, install it from there. That'd be my best suggestions. I don't know if any of those will fix it, but just based on the issues I had recently, those were things that I did.
No, that actually makes a whole lot of sense, come to think of it. Because, I mean, I know that I believe I technically was supposed to do it for when I, put in the CPU, since while the motherboard was ready to be used for, like, Ryzen 5000 series CPUs, for that one, you technically had to, flash an update to it so that way it would properly work. So it could be a case that I have to do the same thing because of the newer GPU. So I'll definitely try that. I think that would definitely could possibly do the trick.
Hopefully
so thank you for actually mentioning that.
Yeah. I know how frustrating it can be, because it's like, it's like we say, there are pluses and minuses to PC gaming, but I mean, the juice is worth the squeeze. It's just a question of, I mean, occasionally you'll come across issues like this where it's like, okay, I can't even boot into my computer properly, and I got to figure out what the problem is. And sometimes it's something simple like one of those options, and sometimes it's the motherboard is bad and you have to replace it, which I've had happen before. But yeah. Well, at least you got your MacBook working. I'm glad about that. That's very good. So, all right. So let's see here. My week has had some interesting twists and turns. I guess nothing like dramatic, and I'll probably forget about some stuff too. Let me just kind of think through my days. So, surprisingly, like, I got completely done with the podcast, including the artwork, before lunch on Thursday, which usually I'll have. Lately, I've been able to get the podcast itself done before then, but then the artwork I have to put together sometime after I get home. But this time I happened to have video footage that I needed on my computer to get the screenshot that I could use in order to create the thumbnail. So that made things easier. And Friday had my nephew over, so we could just go over stuff with him, since he's going to be house sitting for us while we're gone. And I think Saturday. So Saturday was a very busy day. I mean, it was basically, well, for starters, I definitely got up way earlier than I wanted to. I was up at like 6 o'clock, which is later than I normally sleep during the week, but is still, since I was up till like midnight the night before, it was earlier than I wanted to be up, but it's just like I couldn't get back to sleep. I think it was the kids being noisy or something, and then I just had a hard time getting back to sleep, so I decided to get up, and it's like, well, I knew that there was a bunch of stuff I needed to do anyway, so I just went ahead and did it. But oh yeah, before that, so I don't know exactly how all of it works. So with the Juneteenth holiday on last Thursday, which I believe is a bank holiday as well, they I don't know why it works this way, but they paid us a day early, which is unusual, because you would think on a bank holiday you'd be less likely to get paid that day versus getting paid, on the next day, which is Friday, and that's the normal payday. So anyway, it doesn't really matter, but it made it so we were able to do some grocery shopping on Thursday, and that worked out nicely. But let's see here. So Saturday, because of the fact that we had done some grocery shopping, some much needed stuff, I did a bunch of cooking as well as a bunch of cleaning, mostly of the kitchen, and helping the kids with getting like the living room cleaned up, which was mostly just like moving the couches so that I could sweep everything out from underneath the couches so they could clean up all the crap off the floor and stuff, and guiding them through that most of the day. And my wife had, various things that she had to do throughout the day, which included going out for a couple different things. Oh yeah, and she had the birthday party she went to the night before, which I just took that as an opportunity to I think I did a little bit of cooking that night, but then I also finally got around to watching Blade Runner 2049, which I bought, I don't know, a couple years ago on a whim when it was on discount, and I just hadn't watched it yet because my wife didn't really care for the first movie, and I had heard good things about the second movie. I liked the first one enough to watch the second one, so I just finally started watching it. So I watched about half of it before she got home. And but yeah, Saturday ended up being really busy. Did lots of cooking, grilled up a bunch of chicken, made some carnitas. We had picked up a couple of beef chuck roasts, and I hadn't fully decided what I was going to do, but ultimately I just like sliced them in half and then grilled them up like steaks, and then sliced up the meat into strips, and nice medium rare, beautiful, delicious, and just sliced them up into strips that we could have for, whether it's using in a meal or just having as a snack or what have you. And oh yeah, sliced up the turkey and the ham that we had gotten as well. And like I said, did a bunch of cleaning, especially in the kitchen. It was a busy day, and like by the time I got to about 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 1 o'clock, something like that, I was just like, okay, I'm done for today. I've been basically on my feet the whole time. I'm just tired of working on stuff. So the kids had finished doing their cleaning, and I was just mentally done. So I went ahead and took the rest of the day off from doing stuff, and finished watching my movie and played some games and stuff. But Sunday we had church and did music, and we're trying to think, because there's like most of the things are pretty standard. It was just mostly like those kind of things. I mean, Sunday we just rested after church. Apart from, well, immediately after church, I helped get our new soundboard set up, which is basically the same as the one we had before, just has a lot more channels. And gosh, I know that there's like some various things. It's just been kind of like all over the place in terms of what's been going on. I haven't really done much of anything with cleaning and whatnot, apart from what I did on Saturday. I think it was Monday. It was either Monday or Tuesday that I got around to working on the Ethernet cable, and I was able to get it fixed, sort of. So I was able to get it repaired, but it's not working. And I know that I wired it correctly because I double checked the original head that was on the cable, and it's like, okay, this is all correct. I looked at instructions, everything. I know I wired it correctly, but it's not bringing through the Ethernet signal, and I'm not sure exactly what the problem is. I have a tester that I just need to put a battery in and then check it and see if it's actually getting anything from it, because I'm not sure if it's coming through. There is one spot on the cable, because it's like technically it was a 100-foot cable, and I just stretched it throughout the house to get to our front bedroom. There was a spot that was like slightly damaged in the past, and I just duct taped it up, and it was working before, but then after it got chewed up, and then I fixed it. Now it's not working, so I'm not sure if that spot is the other problem spot, because I couldn't find any other problems with the cable anywhere. So I need to test it, and then if the test doesn't show me that the signal is actually coming through, then I need to probably just check that one spot where it was duct taped and see if I can repair that. Because it wouldn't be overly difficult to repair. It's just basically I have to cut it and then separate the wires, get them crimped with the Ethernet cables, and then do a joiner thing to connect it so that it is able to do the whole thing. But I'm just not entirely sure if that's the problem or not, because if the cable itself is getting a signal, then it's a problem with the network adapter on that computer. And I guess another way I could test it is really I could just bring my laptop, plug it in, and then see if it gets a signal. But we also had, there's a company that did a fiber line through town. Like they laid it down last summer or fall, something like that. And they finally were starting to get it set up for people around here. And so we had one of their salesmen come by and just tell us, hey, we're going to be doing this in the neighborhood. If you're interested in switching to us, then, first month is free. The first year is $65 a month for gigabit internet. And then like the equipment is included in, we're not charging for the equipment. All this, assuming that we did it at the same time as everybody else is doing it that they're already in the neighborhood for. And, of course, the price sounded great. And even when it goes up, after that first year, it's going up to $100 for a month, which right now, the internet that we've been using was $161 a month for gigabit. And
Wow.
we've had them for several years. And the service has been mixed. Like, most of the time it's been fine, but occasionally we just have issues, and it's cable-based internet. So it just was kind of like, okay, so I call up the company we've been using and say, hey, this is what this company's offering. Can you give us a deal that's similar or better? And they basically said, no, the best we can do is we can drop it to $110 for 1 year. And then after that, it goes back up to the normal price. And said, oh, but we can offer you that you can have a free year's worth of phone service for one line, which is, otherwise it's $40 a month for unlimited for one line. And it's like, well, right now we have our phone service is $70 a month for 2 lines unlimited. And so basically you're saying that we would have to spend significantly more on top of the fact that we'd already be spending that ridiculous amount for our internet. And it's just like, you guys can't offer me something good enough to make it worthwhile to make the switch. So we made the switch. The technician came by today, got the fiber installed. Seems to be working great. The one downside with it is that the router that came with it only had one output on the box, so I just had to get a splitter, and so I just grabbed one that had 8 slots, kind of took advantage of the ability to do that. But then in the process of plugging it in, I discovered that another one of our Ethernet cables was severed.
Oh,
and I can pretty much guess, even though it's in a spot where technically it could have been a problem with like the door doing it or something, I think it was probably the cats. And so it's just like, it's not one that I absolutely need, because basically it's just for a second computer in here, for whether I'm using it for my work laptop, or previously I was using it for my other desktop for when I'm doing my 24-hour streams, but now I have the laptop. The laptop can use Wi-Fi if needed. I will repair that cable, but it's probably not going to be before we leave. It's not urgent, and it's just enough time and effort to where I'm just like, I'm just not going to deal with it. I have one more day of work this week. I got to finish out my work week. I got to get through, all the packing and stuff that I need to do. Just make sure everything is ready for our trip. And so, yeah. But, trying to think. I guess, apart from the fact that obviously we're going to be leaving on Friday for our trip, leaving as early as we can, hopefully no later than 6 a.m. It's like, it's on the tip of my brain. I guess one thing that I forgot to mention, which of course I shared with you, is that I found transparent colored shells for the Steam Deck OLED. And so I had to order the atomic purple color one so that I could get that classic late 90s vibe from, the N64 and Game Boy Color that I love so much. And unfortunately, my shell won't be arriving until next week while I'm gone. But, my nephew will be here, so, he'll check the mail, and I'll just be here for when I get back, and I'll mess with it then. So yeah, I'm sure there's something else that happened in the past week, but it's just been a whole lot of random stuff, and we are going to be able to after we get through with everything related to the garage, particularly doing garage sale, getting rid of a bunch of stuff. We do have what we need to be able to get an AC unit for the garage, and then work on getting it set up to be an entertainment area for the kids. So Plus, of course, having heating and cooling in there during the respective seasons will be very helpful. So, it's not high priority, but we're set up to where we can do it, and I'll purchase the AC unit probably sometime within the next week, even though it's not going to be installed until sometime in the future. I don't know, probably in the fall will be when we actually have the ability to do it, to get it all installed and get everything set up. We just got to take care of garage sale and all that before we can go that way. So I think that's pretty much everything other than games and stuff that we'll get to when we get to that section here.
Nice. I don't think you mentioned it. How was Blade Runner 2049?
I liked it. It was good. It was a very faithful, like, it maintained the tone really well with the first movie, and it confirmed a long-held fan theory that was never, like, explicitly stated from the original movie, and but mostly it was just like it was just a well done movie. Like it felt very much like Blade Runner, and I mean, it's not a kid movie for sure. I mean, between language, violence, and there is a little bit of nudity, which I'm not a fan of. You know, them having that in the movie, I wish that they could leave that part out, because otherwise, like, I really like the movie, but you know, that's easy enough to fast forward through, and it's not in any way crucial to the plot. It's not like egregious, but it's just enough to where I'm like, I'd just rather it not be there, you know.
Okay. I haven't seen the first one, but I, you know, of course have heard that one came out, and so I heard people liked it, so I was like, yeah. I mean, eventually I feel like I should go back and watch the first one before watching that one.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely need to watch the first one before you watch the second one.
Okay.
Even though it's, you know, a pretty significant chunk of time in between the two, it's essential to watch the first one, even though it's not like a direct sequel or anything, because it, you know, takes place like 30 years later or something like that, but still. But anyway, what have you been playing this week?
So, knocking this one out of the way, I went back, got the final achievements for Vampire Survivors. I had to look up a couple of guides just to, like, make things smooth, faster as far as, like, what I need to actually do to get those achievements, but, only took me about maybe a couple hours and I got the last one. So I was like, that's cool, that's it, I'm done. Until they decide to, like, add more achievements to the game, I am not touching it right now anymore, so I'm done with that. Went back and finished, like I said, testing other games on the PC for my comparison. Played a little bit of Crysis Remastered. Didn't do too much there with it, just partially because I didn't want the autosave to kick in and, like, go over, like, a new area. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna play for like a few minutes here, stop recording, and then just when I put the new GPU in, start back from around there. Even though the gameplay won't be the same, the same area it'll be the same area, so performance should be relatively the same, well enough. I went and played a little bit of Spider-Man Remastered. Didn't do too much there, just did some web swinging around the city some, and this game probably won't be the best with comparing the GPUs, just because I think this really is more, it leans more so to the CPU side, just because I was not fully utilizing the GPU. It was like probably around 75 to 80% of the GPU, whereas with the CPU was hovering around like the 60% range. But granted, that possibly could also be because I was recording at the same time. But it's not like I was actually, you know, fully utilizing the GPU. So I might decide if I want to keep that footage or not, but we'll see. Now, one thing that I thought would be a good comparison was I played Pools. Now, before I played in the past, I had talked about it, and I was playing the demo for it. And actually, the footage you'll be seeing, I think, is still from the demo, because I didn't play the actual game, game until Sunday. And I must say that it definitely will utilize it some more. I mean, for example, unlike with the demo, which granted I also was playing on my previous gaming laptop, I had everything set to like a combination of low, medium, mainly low, I think. But with here, I was able to boost things up higher to like a high settings, and also, increase the field of view while also, of course, turning down depth of field, and all that other stuff. So I think this will definitely be great for comparison. Because I mean, I think this game really shines with how it's definitely a graphics game, I'll say, just because of how things look with the lighting and stuff.
Right.
Now there's one thing that is really weird, which I've tried to see what the issue could have been, where there's just like this weird lighting thing that's happening, which I thought, okay, maybe it's just a setting, like, maybe it's something which has to do with like some weird game mechanic, like sort of like a blinking mechanic where the where your vision's like different or something like that. But then I realized, no, it doesn't seem to be a setting, it's just some weird thing that's going on. So I'm not certain if it's like a Linux thing, which is weird because, like I said, the demo didn't have that. So I'm still trying to figure out what to do about that. But I mean, it definitely runs well. I was running it at 144 frames per second,
Nice.
with some dips here and there once you actually get into the water, which that was the thing I wanted to actually test and see, because the water, I know, definitely hits the frame rate, which it kind of dips briefly, probably to around 120-ish, but then after a few moments it'll jump back up to like 144, which is very interesting to me, what that did so well. So I really feel like once I actually put in the new GPU, it's definitely be more consistent if it doesn't have better performance overall. But there actually was one weird thing that I will also mention, is the fact that I played it, I went back to the main menu, and I said, all right, let me jump back in. I don't remember what the reason was, because I think it was because I was trying to test to make sure that the settings were correct, just to see if I could like cut out the weird lighting thing. But when I played the game over again, the frame rate was then about 110, while dropping down to like 80, and I was wondering, what's going on here? Why I didn't do anything different? Why is the frame rate so low right now? So like I'm not certain if that was a one-off thing, because I rebooted the game again, then it was back at 144 frames per second, and I was like, huh, weird. But yeah, that was definitely interesting. But yeah, so also this week, on Steam, there's you definitely know this game, but it's called Steam World Dig, and this game was being given out for free this week. And in fact, I think tomorrow is the last day to claim it. So I said, well, since I can't really play on my PC right now, I'll download the game, give it a whirl, and it's definitely interesting. It's not completely what I thought it was going to be, because I heard it was a Metroidvania, so I thought, all right, it's a Metroidvania, you're going to go around, get new abilities, go to new areas, and I thought it's just an entire labyrinth, which, I mean, technically it is, but you're essentially you just keep going down, essentially, and you come back up whenever you need to, whether it be because you need to refill your lantern, whether, you need to empty your pouch, or whatever it may be. So it's definitely interesting, the fact that it's not like your typical Metroidvania where, all right, you go look through a new area and you have to get a new ability to reach a new area, which, I mean, you technically do have to do, but I don't know how to explain it. It's just the main purpose is to go down as far as you can, but you just backtrack whenever you need to like empty out your contents or get new equipment. Different from you keep going as far as you can until you reach a wall that you need an item for, and then just like search around new area before you can come back. So it's definitely different, that aspect. It's definitely interesting, I'll say. I know I went into the second area. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's not part of Old World, but it's like a brand new area where you start to get where you start to see new enemies, with the ones with the, I think they're called shiners. So that's
Yeah,
pretty much where I am
that's
so
old world,
far.
or yeah, that's old world, I believe. For some reason,
Okay.
yeah, I'm pretty sure that's right. But I'll look at my soundtrack. That'll remind me. Anyway, go ahead.
But yeah, I'm definitely enjoying it so far. And I'll probably just continue playing that for right now. And then the last thing I played, I didn't really do too much with this, but I primarily played this just because I saw that it was the 10-year anniversary, and that is Batman Arkham Knight. So like I said, I didn't do too much. I primarily just thought, I haven't played this game in a while. I'm gonna give it a whirl. Additionally, I saw that I still hadn't completed all of the DLC for it, so I said I'll go back and tackle what I haven't done so far. So I did a little bit of the Catwoman story mission. Didn't do too much with it, primarily just because for some reason the performance didn't seem to be consistent on the Steam Deck, which is weird because I know that it had been doing pretty well before, but I don't know if just partially because of the heat in here, that could be a reason why or not. But yeah, so I did a little bit of that there and for a while. Not sure if I'll go back to it right now. It was just something that I thought, hey, it's the 10-year anniversary. I'll go back to this game. It is a shame though that we never got another game from Rocksteady. They never made another game after Arkham Knight, which is weird. They never gave us anything ever again. But yeah, so that is everything that I have played this past week.
Very nice. So yeah, the SteamWorld Dig. Now this is probably honestly my favorite indie game. Period. I mean, there's a lot of great ones out there, but it's probably my favorite because it is a Metroidvania. It's short and sweet and just really, really good. Of course, it is procedurally generated. Well, apart from like when you go into doors, into different areas, those ones are not procedurally generated. Those are specific maps for each one, but everything else is procedurally generated as you're going down. And sounds like you're basically in the second area, and there's like 3 areas basically. So, yeah, but it's a fantastic game. I love that game. Like I said, it is pretty short, but I think the shortest time it's taken me to beat it was maybe 4 to 5 hours. I think my first time was like 11 hours, but I died quite a few times before I kind of got the hang of everything. But yeah, I really, really, really like that game a lot. So you should definitely stick with it and just see how you like it in the end. Now, the second game is a lot more, it doesn't have any of that procedural generation. It's all very, very curated as an experience, and it's also longer. And in many ways, it's better mechanically. But I mean, just both games are fantastic. SteamWorld Dig is like a good palate cleanser for me. If I just need something to help me get like out of a funk, if I'm in a funk in terms of games, there have been multiple times where I've just restarted SteamWorld Dig and played that until I got out of the funk. And in more than one instance, I replayed SteamWorld Dig and then jumped back into SteamWorld Dig 2 immediately after. So the other thing that's great about these two games is that they're really well optimized. I mean, of course, they look and run great on basically every platform where they are. They're even 60 frames per second with the 3D turned on the 3DS.
Wow.
I mean, granted, the visuals are not great without the 3D turned on. And even with the 3D turned on, they're not the best. But the first game was originally developed specifically for the 3DS. And then they just ported it to other platforms. But it's great no matter where you play it. So, well worth it from that standpoint. But yeah. I don't really have anything else to say about the other stuff. Arkham Knight's always great. I only have really tested it out a tiny bit on the Steam Deck, so um, I think ultimately I ended up setting the frame rate cap to 40 FPS when I was trying it out before, just because that seemed to be, because that's kind of like the better balance, and it wasn't maintaining 60 well enough to keep it at 60 for the cap. So that was at least my experience, but I really didn't play much. I think I played maybe a couple hours, and that was around the time I first got the original Steam Deck. So all right, so my gaming week has been kind of interesting. um so first of all, I was just like stuck with Dark Souls 3, and I was getting really irritated fighting Sister Friede, and so I just kind of stepped away a bit. Decided, okay, I'm going to focus on Guacamelee 2. So I played some Guacamelee 2, and this game is definitely harder than the first game. But you know, I eventually got to a point where I was on one of the secret chicken puzzle things that I needed to do in order to get the key thing that helps me get the best ending and all of that. And I don't have any footage from it, but it's just like this very long jumping puzzle, and it's one that doesn't require as much, like it's not like the one I talked about last week where you basically have to your reflexes have to be absolutely perfect all the way through, and if you mess up you start over completely. It was more like it's in stages, and so like you'll have to go through a bunch of crazy stuff to get to the next level of this long ascending stage. And when you get to a certain point, then you'll be able to, you're on a new platform, and the good thing is once you reach a new like platform where you're actually standing on it, where it's like a solid platform, then then every time you die from there, as long as you don't touch a different platform, it will just respawn you back at that platform. So like if you die, you immediately just zoop, you're right back at the platform where you fell off or died, or what have you. But the thing is that some of these challenges were just really, really annoying. And it got to a point where I just felt like I was stuck. I was not getting anywhere with this. I was just constantly spinning my wheels at this one section, not making any progress. And I finally just decided, okay, I'm going to step away. I'm going to play something else. And now I guess I'm going to kind of do these things a little bit out of order. I'll get back to, I'll just kind of I'll come back to Guacamelee, because I do come back to it. So I decided on Saturday to try out a game that has been on my 3DS for quite some time, because I bought a physical version for definitely more than it should have costed, but it was basically right around the time the 3DS eShop was shutting down, and there's no digital version of the game. So Tales of the Abyss is the game, and I decided I wanted to finally jump into that, like really give it a shot, because my buddy Zach in particular has told me that it's his favorite Tales game. And I had only just like briefly tried it out before, so I played a bit. Not far into it. The footage here is just from where I am currently, which is like not super far after the first boss you face. But it's interesting enough. One thing that is kind of interesting, didn't take me long to figure it out, but the main character is voiced by Yuri Lowenthal, and so it's just like, oh yeah, it's Spider-Man or Yosuke, or what have you. But yeah, so like I said, I just played a little tiny bit. I did leave the 3D turned on while I was filming this, so there's going to be some weird ghosting because of the fact that it's displaying 2 images at once for the 3D effect. But anyway, so yeah, I didn't play a ton of that, but I'll probably keep playing it off and on. What I also decided to boot up was God of War on the Vita. And the main reason I did this on Vita rather than Steam Deck is because of the fact that after I did my factory reset of the Steam Deck back in March, I never got the PS3 version of God of War, the God of War trilogy, or not trilogy, but the God of War HD collection reinstalled on the Steam Deck. So it's like, well, I already had this on the Vita. I've been wanting, I mean, I played a little bit of the Vita version before anyway, so I might as well go ahead and boot it up. And so I did. And I got further on the Vita version than I was on the PS3 version that I was emulating. But not the furthest I've gotten in the game before, because when I had originally played it on Vita, partially, I was a little past where I am right now. So, still very early in the game. I'll just put it that way. And it, yeah, I mean, it's a cool game. I think I'll probably just kind of dabble with it here and there. It was more just an excuse to play something on my Vita because I've been wanting to play it a bit. So that seemed like that was something simple enough. I could play a little bit here and there and just see where I get, see whether I stick with it for a while or if I just play for a little bit and then fall off like I often do with these kinds of games. But I did end up coming back to Dark Souls 3. And with Dark Souls 3, I finally beat Friede. Now, unfortunately, because of the fact that I was playing in handheld mode and the recording didn't work properly, I couldn't record my victory run, but I did record the part where it shows that I defeated her, basically. It says air fire destroyed and, all of that. So I got past her finally. So it worked out, Unfortunately, for some reason, the footage is like really low quality. I think it's partially because of how I transferred it. I don't know, but either way, it is what it is. Oh yes, so going back to Dark Souls 3. So I went ahead and went further into I started up the Ring City DLC. And I gotta say, right off the bat, the performance tanked on the Steam Deck. And I mean, granted, that was with like mostly high settings. But like the frame rate drops into like the high to low 30s, and then we'll kind of go up to 60, and then we'll drop back into the 30s and 40s a bit. As I lowered the settings, that definitely helped, and then it was getting more consistent on 60. But I think that maybe like the game is trying to load in the whole Ring City. That's one theory I've seen, is that's the reason why the performance just completely tanks here. But yeah, I didn't get very far into it. I basically just I feel kind of similarly about this like I did when I first went into Ashes of Ariandel, where just the number of enemies and the annoyance of all of them was really just kind of making me not want to play as much, not enjoying myself. And of course, because of the fact that the frame rate was just kind of all over the place, it was also making it a little harder to react. But then getting ganged up on by enemies, obviously, that causes issues. I was able to make it to the second bonfire, which is usually the big thing that I need. It's just like, okay, make it to the second bonfire. I can proceed from here. I just need to like check out probably Fighting Cowboys walkthrough on that just to figure out exactly what it is that I need to do next to help me to be able to proceed forward and actually make it to the first boss of the DLC, because there's I think 3 total bosses, one of those being 2 phases, or one of those bosses being 2 bosses at the same time, which I can't remember if they have a second phase. I think it's It starts as 2 bosses, and then when you kill them, they like fuse and become 1 boss, I believe is how it works. So I'll have that, and then I have a Dark Eater Madir, which is like a dragon that's supposed to be really tanky and really annoying. And then I believe after I beat them, it's possible I'm mixing up the order. I know the very last boss of the entire Dark Souls series is just a single person, but he's basically like more or less Artorias, like old man version of Artorias, in a much bigger arena. So, and I don't know anything about him lore-wise or anything other than just, what he looks like, and that supposedly when you finish that, it's like, okay, it's very clear there cannot be another Dark Souls from a lore standpoint. So I figure I'll learn all that when I actually get there. I'm not like in a rush. But anyway, so with that, I went back into Guacamelee 2. I was able to get past that jumping puzzle finally, and get to the end of it. And then I went and did some more exploring. Kind of worked on clearing out some maps a bit. And then I came across the next golden chicken key jumping puzzle thing, and I don't think this one's going to be as hard overall, but I was just kind of like, okay, I'm just over it right now. So one of the things that comes up a lot in these different puzzles, in this game that didn't exist in the first game, is that like the environment will shift dimensions constantly. Like basically it'll have scrolling, basically like panes, I guess you could say, like scrolling. You'll have a section of it that's scrolling past, and it's in one dimension, and then the other direction you have scrolling past the other dimension. One dimension is just like normal, all of that. But in the other dimension, it's lava. So if you happen to get caught in the dimension with lava, then you die instantly. And so I attempted this a handful of times. I kind of made it a little bit further occasionally, but after a while, I got really tired of doing this. I mean, I tried it again today, mostly just because I needed to record some footage. And I definitely got further along, but I was just not feeling it. Like the reflexes required for some of these, like especially last night, I was just feeling like I didn't have reflexes at all. Like it just wasn't working for me. I do want to back up ever so slightly, and I don't have any footage recorded for it because I really didn't play very long. I played maybe like 10 minutes or something. I did reinstall Arkham Asylum on the Steam Deck and played that a little bit. Speaking of which, if you have not ever gotten it working, you just need to run it with Proton Experimental, and then it will boot. Otherwise, it crashes before it fully boots. So anyway, but then it runs at solid, flawless 60 frames per second all the time, max settings, minus PhysX, which obviously you don't want to use without an NVIDIA card. But yeah, I didn't play very much. I wasn't like really planning to play it. It was just kind of like, oh, I kind of had the itch, especially because I saw that all of the Batman games on GOG are on sale for super cheap, and it's like $6 for the most expensive one, which I think is Arkham Knight. I think that's the most expensive one. So I was just kind of in the mood to mess with it. But in trying to find something that didn't really require reflexes, I went ahead and booted up Yu-Gi-Oh! Link Evolution, whatever the title of the game is. It's oh, let me look at it. What is the title of that game? I can never remember the full title because
Legacy of the Duelist.
Yes, Legacy of the Duelist. That's right. Legacy of the Duelist Link Evolution, I believe, is the full title. And yeah, so I booted that up, and I've gone through a handful of the various card battles in the original Yu-Gi-Oh story, and that's about the extent of what I've done, but I've been having a good time with it overall. There will be footage. I guess I apparently didn't render it, or I rendered it to a folder that I couldn't remember where I rendered it, so I'll figure that out later and add it in post. But yeah, it's always interesting though going to that, because for one, you'll have like you're doing these historic duels from the original, first season of the original Duelist Kingdom arc, with Pegasus and everything. And of course, in the show they just kind of like made up rules as they went along, and it was just it was nonsense. Whole bunch of nonsense. But what's also kind of funny is, you go into these duels in this game after they've added all these additional rules that didn't exist back when this story originally came out. And so you have people using like cards that did not exist, 25, 30 years ago. And just and then if you decide to use the deck that was supposedly used in the story, even if some of those cards didn't exist at that time, it's such hit or miss, because in many ways the decks are just like have a bunch of really garbage cards in them, but then you also just happen to have enough good cards to where you can make it work if you try. And I tried doing it with like a custom deck, but I didn't really have enough good cards, and there's just like I was having a hard time building a solid deck because there's just too many like weird rules and stuff. And anyway, so I basically just been focusing on using the story-based decks. But sometimes if RNG is just really against you, you're just going to get garbage hands every single time, and you just completely get stomped by the other person. And then other times you'll get a great hand every time, and you'll just completely slaughter them. I mean, it was really nice to beat Seto Kaiba with Exodia, because, it's like, that's canon. That's the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to beat you with Exodia. But yeah, either way, this is a good one right now for me, I think. I mean, I don't know that it's going to be something I'm like playing constantly forever, but it's a good filler game for just while I just kind of needed a break from stuff that requires reaction times, because my goodness, I was just struggling. But I'll definitely be going back to both Dark Souls 3 and Guacamelee 2, and I'll keep trying, and I'll get through them. It just might take a little bit longer. One of the things I did end up doing is I went ahead and installed Dark Souls 3 on my laptop and transferred over my save, because I need it to be 60 frames per second. I can't deal with this fluctuation of frame rate in the Ring City. And the thing is that this is the only location where it does this. It doesn't do it anywhere else in the game. The rest of the time, 60 frames per second maybe drops into the high 50s on the Steam Deck, but it's like just about flawless the entire time, except in the Ring City. And from everything I can find online, that is common. It is the Ring City specifically that has performance issues, and this was not even exclusive to the Steam Deck. This was on PC in general. And I don't think I'm going to have those issues when I'm actually playing on the laptop, let alone my desktop. But either way, just that frame rate hurt me. And yeah, but I think that's basically everything. Let me just double check my notes. Yeah, I believe that's everything. I did reinstall the swapper on Steam Deck. I haven't tried it out yet, but it is now Steam Deck verified, and there was actually an update to it like really recently. And the game came out in 2013, but the developers made it basically. I think basically what they did is they just made it so that the controls work the same way that they do on console, because that game did come to PlayStation, like PS3 and PS4 and Vita, and it was also on the Wii U. And I had bought it basically everywhere where it came out. Absolutely love that game. Super, super great. One of my favorite indie games of all time. Favorite puzzle indie games. One of my favorite sci-fi stories. And probably the one game that made me really like think more than any other game has. And I'm not just talking about in terms of puzzles, because, you know, the puzzles, I mean, any puzzle game can make you think from that standpoint, but like philosophically think about things. It brings up ideas that that a game wouldn't normally bring up, but it's like I walk away with the game, I'm just like, wow. Like, I'm really just like thinking about it. And every time I think back on that game, I'm just like, I'm still just, it brings up questions that I just have to like still think through. I'm like, you know, I'm not really sure how I would answer that. Even, you know, from a Christian perspective, it's kind of hard to understand how to answer it. And it's not like it makes me question my faith, nothing like that. Just more like, anyway, it's questions that relate to the game mechanics. I'll just put it that way. And yeah, that's the extent of what I'm going to say on that. But that is everything I have played this week.
I'll definitely have to check that out. It sounds very interesting from what you've described right now, so I'll definitely look that up. Especially,
I think I got that one for you. I think that was one of the games I gifted you a few years ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll definitely.
I might just be. I know I did Gunpoint, and I know you tried that one out and didn't play a ton of it.
Yeah.
But I can't. I think I did the Swapper for you as well. I'm not positive. You'll have to check your Steam library, see if it's in there.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out later on. So going back through the games that you mentioned. So I guess jumping back to the Tales series. So is that the first Tales of game you've played, or is that like one of the okay?
Although I will mention, I had also installed Tales of Symphonia on the Steam Deck, but then I found out that it is locked at 30 frames per second, and there's no mods to bump it up to 60. Whereas the 3DS one actually has a cheat, you know, with the modded 3DS to do 60 frames per second.
What? Oh wow, that is. Bandai did us dirty then.
Yeah, especially because the GameCube version of Tales of Symphonia is 60 frames per second. But it's 30 everywhere else, including in the remaster.
That's messed up right there. Yeah, that's a bad port right there. Yeah, because I was gonna ask you you know, how you felt about that game compared with the other ones, but I guess you wouldn't really know too much.
Yeah, I mean, I do have, I have 4 of them, I believe, because I have Abyss on 3DS, and then I have Symphonia, Vesperia, I believe, and I think there was one other one that I have all on Steam. I'd have to look and see what they are, but I know I have a few of them. I just haven't played any of them yet. It's like I've always been interested. It just I haven't, and so probably, I mean, Abyss will definitely be the first one I play, and then from there I'd probably check out the ones on Steam. I wanted to get the one on Vita, but unfortunately it's not listed in the Vita store anymore. You can't buy it, so there's basically only one way I'd be able to play that, and that's a little yo ho ho. But hey, that's their fault, not mine.
Okay. Going to Dark Souls 3. So with Sister Friday, did you end up having to like change any of your strategies, or were you just like using the same methods you were before with trying to beat her, especially in like, I guess, the final phase that she had?
Like, pretty much I just kind of, I mean, there was a strategy, I think I talked about it last week, you know, that I had come across it. And basically it was more or less a lot more just kind of keeping your distance and then attacking at the opportune times. And I definitely didn't do it anywhere near as well as the guide explained for me to do it, but I did it well enough to where I was ultimately able to beat her. And of course, I farmed some embers before I went in there, and had to do that a couple times before I ultimately beat her. But yeah.
And you were still using the pancake move on her, or?
No, I
Or
didn't really use pancake move much at all. Mostly because it just takes a little too long to charge it. Um, but I still use Zweihander and um, ended up doing more stabby stabs. So there was one point where it was kind of funny. I was kind of stun locking her with stabs, like because she'll disappear and then she'll run off, and if you can get to her and you hit her, it's like, okay, I hit her to where she was able to, where she was just stunned enough to where then I could do a stabby stab, and she fell over, and then I stabbed her again when she got up, and did that for a few times before she finally was able to like really get up. But yeah, it's fun when you can stun lock a boss, even if it's just briefly. It's just too bad it can't be all the time.
One thing that I have, it's not a major spoiler or anything like that, but just something that you had mentioned, so I thought I'd just bring this up. With the two bosses in Ring City that you face, and then you like have the one fight, from what I've heard or from I remember, it's sort of like an Orange and Smell boss.
That's
where
right. Yep.
If you beat one, it'll determine how the second phase goes.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think I remember hearing that now.
Yeah. And let me know. Well, question. Oh, I guess I'm just curious. What is in the Ring City? What's the annoying enemy that you've encountered so far? Because I've heard there's just one in particular that a lot of people hate, and I want to know. And I'm just curious as to how far into it is before you reach that enemy.
Well, I mean, like, I've encountered various annoying enemies. I think probably the most annoying I've encountered so far, there's like these guys that crawl on the ground, and they have like sickles, and they just swarm you, and that's really probably the most annoying one. I mean, there's some like mage guys that are that type of enemy, except that they don't swarm you on the ground. They just fire stuff at you, and then there's also like this big angel thing that's really annoying. But that one, once you find the enemy that spawns them and kill them, then the angel stops spawning. So
Oh, okay, so that actually was the one I was thinking about, because I've heard that the angels were really annoying, and so I didn't know how far into it that you.
Yeah, I mean, the first one them. I was able to kill the guy that spawns it. The second one, I haven't found the guy who spawns it yet, although I did come across the angel, and it's definitely killed me a couple times. But since I didn't really know exactly what I was doing and just kind of like lost patience and didn't really feel like looking it up, I just figured, okay, well, before I try again, I'll look it up and find out where I need to go.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's everything that I have.
All right. Good stuff. All right. Well, tonight is going to be a bit of a different show because we don't have a whole lot of like really in-depth news, I guess you could say. But we can talk about a couple of different topics. Starting with one of the smaller ones. Mario Kart 64 now has a unofficial, of course, native PC version, which happens to have ultra-wide support and a track editor, and of course can do super high frame rates. And yeah, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, shouldn't be too surprised considering the fact that after, I think it was Super Mario 64, that was the first game that was ported over.
Yeah.
And then they got Legend of Zelda brought over, so there's been a slow trickle of games being ported over, and so I'm not too surprised that this is one of the next ones. This one definitely out of the gate has probably had the most support, or at least the most features out of any of the N64 ports. I mean, the fact that you have the track editor and ultra wide screen support, which, looking at the screenshot of, by the way, which I mean, I'm sure it's an acquired taste, but I just really think the ultra widescreen just looks kind of ugly to me. I mean, if you're a person who likes that type of thing, more power to you. But I think it just looks too wide. For what the game is. But I mean, the fact that it has support though, I think is great though. And of course, having those higher frame rates is definitely cool too. I mean, eventually I'll have to go and get this set up. Because I mean, it'll definitely be interesting trying to play, because I haven't played Super Mario Kart 64 in years, and I mean, it's definitely a game that I remember like one of the I think the first time I actually played the game was probably at like a summer VBS or something like that, and the church had an N64 set up, and one of the games was Super Mario Kart 64. I was playing, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Except I think one of the first tracks that I played on was actually Rainbow Road, which is not, something you should probably be playing as a 5-year-old for your first time in a game like that. But yeah, like, it definitely was interesting, even though, I wasn't doing so great at it. But yeah, I mean, years later I went back and played it again, and it's definitely a good game. It's definitely a fun game to play. I mean, haven't touched in a year, so I don't know how it still feels, especially compared with the newer games. I mean, of course, no, it's an older game, so it probably won't feel as smooth, but I'm pretty certain it's still just as fun now as it was years ago. So I'm definitely looking forward to starting this, or getting this set up, and also maybe trying to get my niece and nephew to play this and say, oh, you want to play some Mario Kart? Oh. But yeah, I think this is great, and I look forward to the next port of N64 games.
Yeah, I definitely need to grab this one. Of course, there's more of them I still need to grab too. The only one I've actually really tried out was Ocarina of Time, but I really want to do the various other ones, because there's a handful of different N64 ports that would be a lot of fun to check out at the high frame rate and everything else. And of course I have that N64 NSO controller that I can use with it to give it the authentic experience, just with a whole lot better frame rate. The ultra wide thing, I'm mixed on it, because I like it from the standpoint of, I think it's cool being able to see that much around you and not have the limited field of view. But obviously I don't have an ultra-wide monitor, and I'm not going to get one for that, because I like the idea of ultra-wide theoretically, but considering there are so many games that don't even support it, it just feels pointless to me. I've tried doing the triple monitor setup before, but the problem is that that's only really good to do if you have 3 of the same monitor, because if you have different sized monitors, it just doesn't work super well. And it's I'd rather just have one monitor dedicated to the gaming and then have my other monitors used for other stuff. Now it's easier to multitask. But I did do that for Destiny before. It's pretty cool. But yeah, definitely need to check this out. It's just a matter of, more than anything, making sure that I track down everything I need to in order to make it happen. And I still need to do the same with Super Mario 64 especially. And am I remembering correctly that Jet Force Gemini is one of the ones that's available this way? Maybe not.
Oh, I need to check and see then, because that's definitely a game that I would love to play.
Yeah,
if
because
it is
it's one I've never
possible.
played, and so, or at least other than
Yeah.
briefly trying out the N64 version. But
yeah, I'll definitely need to check and see, and I'll definitely know if I find out, because that, I mean, once you get to the late game, it's a bit of a hassle because it's sort of like you have to do a collectathon thing where you have to get everything right in order to actually get the real ending.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, like, apart from that, it's just a really fun game to
Yeah.
play. So I like, if it is, if it does have a port, I would definitely recommend playing it because it's good.
Yeah. Lots of games like that I want to play. So, yep. All right. Good stuff. Well, let's move on into our next topic. And that is this whole situation with DBrand and their kill switch grip case thing for the Switch 2. You want to talk about that one?
Yeah. So DBrand has, released a grip. And people have been using it, and unfortunately there's a problem with it where if you hold it in a particular way, the Joy-Cons detach from the Switch, and that's, obviously not good, especially if you're holding a particular way and, it detaches and your Switch could fall and hit the ground, and it's just not a good situation. Now, initially when this was brought up, DBrand was kind of dismissing the claims and also saying stuff like, in a quote here, "Nobody routinely holds their Switch 2 like this," and suggested that some players were actively trying to, have it detach and fall apart. And people were sending in, videos of it happening, and this led to a bit of a bit of a back and forth between the company on Reddit and the fans, and DBrand posted a couple videos here, and then including one video which had with the title "Kill Switch 2 Release Issue Without Being a Weirdo." And again, people sent in videos and stuff, and eventually at one point though, DBrand did say that they were going to fix it, and just backtracked and said that how they handled it was unacceptable. And then there's one quote from them here, which says, "After reading through your feedback, it's quite clear that our post was a spectacularly terrible response to the issue at hand. Some of you have expressed that opinion in a perfectly reasonable way. Others have expressed it with literal death threats. We're not clear on how this went from a problem we need to address to this is the worst company to ever exist, but we acknowledge that every complaint we've received is underpinned by a problem that we alone are responsible for solving. As easy as it is to boil our original post down to you're holding it wrong, what we're sober to now is the point that you should be allowed to hold it however the blank you want without detachment occurring. We get it. Please continue dunking on us for the next 6 to 8 months for reincarnating Steve Jobs." And so yeah, so I believe also everyone, whether they've had this issue or not, is getting a free replacement set of Joy-Con grips, and they're still going to work on this. And I believe that they are also currently suspending shipments of. Okay, no, actually it says that they would not be able to hold back orders until one of the two solutions for the grips have come in, just because of, as they said, the scale of production. But it is going to, but it's also going to push back their customer support backlog further on. But they do say finally that they are 100% committed to getting everyone a replacement Joy-Con ASAP, regardless of how they're affected. And if they've, or even if they don't even know that this has happened. So that is essentially everything that has happened with DBrand and this whole fiasco. I've got several things to say about this, but I will let you take the stage first.
Well, I very much have to say that, I mean, obviously their original response was just a really, really bad way to put it. It's like, you don't just treat a bunch of people's complaints as nothing. Now, yes, there are situations where people are complaining about nothing, but I mean, there's demonstrations in these videos where people weren't necessarily doing anything all that unusual with how they were handling it, and yet their Joy-Cons were becoming detached very, very easily. And I'm glad that ultimately they have recognized that they made a mistake and that they're doing what they can to correct it. But yeah, I kind of wish that they had done a bit better testing, because while it's not going to affect everyone, it just seems like it really does make it so that the connection is not quite as solid as it's supposed to be, and it creates just enough of a like an error gap to where it's not fully magnetically connecting properly, and so then the Joy-Cons fall off or the Switch falls out of the Joy-Con. It's kind of ridiculous. But like I said, I'm glad that at least they are making an effort to fix it. Because, from what I can tell, I mean, everything I've heard about the ones that they did for the original Switch was really positive. And, I mean, it does look like these things do add like a nice amount of grip to the system. But ultimately, I'm glad I didn't purchase this. Not that I was planning to buy anything other than the Satisfy grip, despite the fact that I found out that's not coming till late summer, which is very disappointing. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say on that front.
Well, first off, I have to say that is, considering what the product has the potential to do, that was a very poor choice of wording, calling it the kill switch. But I do think that how they handled it initially was horrific. Because I mean, I while I understand, like you said, sometimes there are complaints that are nothing burgers. At the same time, though, to their initial response was pretty similar to how you have the sort of like Wendy's Twitter account, and then also like I think it's NZXT's social media account as well. I know they're also another one that's sort of like just trolling people, and when people actually have legitimate concerns and complaints, they just belittle them. So that's kind of like that's kind of the feeling that I got when I first heard their initial response, which is horrible. There are people who have concerns, and I get that some people might not hold their Switch Joy-Cons in that particular way, but as some people said, if you have smaller hands, and especially I thought about this in another case, what about kids? Now you could argue that maybe kids might not need to have the grips because their hands are small enough that they don't need to have them. But still, if you say that they're like playing with their parents' Switch or something like that, then the grips are probably going to be one there. So if a child's hands aren't large enough to like hold it and like also being able to hold the back of the Switch, then they're just holding the Joy-Cons, which will, of course, as DBrand pointed out, is going to help cause the Joy-Cons to detach and fall off the console unit. So yeah, they definitely did not handle this the right way, and while it's good that eventually they said we handle this in the wrong fashion, and they are going to try to make things right, and regardless if you had a problem or not, or if you're aware of it, that they would get replacements sent out. Honestly, I feel like that's the least they can do, given how they handled it in the first place. Because the biggest thing, which I've after looking at things, is the biggest issue is not if you have a problem with a product. The biggest thing is how you handle that issue, which I think is one of the most important things. Because if you dismiss the issues off the bat or try to belittle them, that's worse. That's the worst thing you could possibly do, and it really just damages your reputation more than anything else. I think two cases in point for me, like thinking about something kind of similar as far as like with faulty products. Two examples would be, which going back to this, NZXT, they had a PC case that had problems, I think, with the wiring, where you could potentially cause a fire within your PC, and they did not handle that in a serious manner. And even when people were talking about it, like on social media, they were treating it as a joke, for example, and that if it like I don't see how your product could possibly cause a house fire is something of a joke. And meanwhile, Fractal Design, they released a PC case like 3 or 4 years ago, something like that, and there was a problem with like the fans or something like that, and it was a big issue. And they said, okay, there were probably like a handful of issues, but they said, we've received reports that there's a problem with our case. We're going to halt production right now, and we're going to take care of everything that's happened, and we'll try to, like, for everyone who's had a problem, we'll try to get you replacements and stuff like that to make to make things right for you. That was the right thing to do. There were only a handful of cases. It probably was just trace problems here and there, but they decided to jump on it right off the bat and try to correct things on that end. So that was the right thing to do. That was the best thing to do, and ultimately it generated a lot of goodwill. So as people, because I mean, like, it wasn't even a problem that people who were reviewing it caught, because they were like, yeah, the case is good, we recommend buying it. And despite that, despite the fact they were already getting good press, they said, yeah, we see that there are problems that people have experienced, and we want to correct that. Like, that's all that DBrand had to do, was just say, hey, we see that there's a problem with our grips. We want to make that right by you. But instead they said, hey, that's a you problem. You all weren't holding it right, which is just ridiculous. So while it's good that they're doing this, that's really how they should have handled in the first place. So for me, I would not feel, despite the fact they were trying to fix it now, me personally, I would not, want to go and buy a DBrand Joy-Con grip, even if it is fixed. If there's no issues with the revised version. The way they handled the situation is what turns me off from it. And I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna go look for another company, because even if it might not be as the same quality, I might have better support from this company than from you.
Yeah.
But that is essentially everything that I have to say on this matter. Oh, actually, I did have one question though. So for you, especially since you had the Satisfy grip, how does it look like, as far as like the way it's positioned on there with these Joy-Cons? I mean, I know that it's probably gonna be slightly different since it's a Switch 2, but is it like a major difference as far as like how it's fitting onto the Joy-Con compared with the Satisfy?
Oh yeah, because the Satisfy one, it basically has two grips with a bar that goes across, so it holds everything together. So that there's no way that you wouldn't have the same issue that you have with the DBrand one, because the DBrand one is designed to where you can still detach the Joy-Cons. With the Satisfy grip, it's not designed like that.
Okay.
And I mean, thankfully, they have designed. I mean, they started this with the Switch OLED, but they've designed it so that the Switch 2 one by default is dockable, which the original versions, the first two versions of the Satisfy grip, were not dockable. You had to remove the grip every time you wanted to put it in the dock. So,
okay.
It's just unfortunate that it's not until late summer that it's supposed to be coming out. It's like, I want that. So I ended up borrowing my old Satisfy case from my nephews, because they don't really use the one that came with their Switch when my brother-in-law bought my old V2 from me. So since they don't use that case and we need a third case for transport, I mean, for while we're on our trip, I borrowed theirs, and that way we actually have a way to transport everything without anything having to be outside of a case. Keep everything nice and secure. Keep it secure. But, yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to our last topic. And this one may end up being one we spend a little more time on. We'll kind of just play it by ear, but supposedly, according to YouTube channel Beat 'em Ups, also known as Wood Hawker, there is going to be a Nintendo Direct in the month of July, and obviously focused on the Switch 2. And they just recently had a Direct that was specifically focused on Donkey Kong Bonanza. But apart from that game and Metroid Prime 4, we don't have any ideas of what first-party Nintendo games are coming, really at all. Like, we don't have any indications because, yeah, there's some updates to previous versions. There's some GameCube Virtual Console stuff we know that's coming in time, but beyond that, that's really the only information we have. So we can talk about, I'll bring up the things that he says are going to be at the Direct, noting that this is potential spoilers for anybody who wants to be completely blind on the Direct. And I will I'll just say there's potential spoilers here. That's all I'm going to say. So I guess listen at your own risk if you don't want any potential spoilers. But the things that he said that are going to be at the Direct, first of all, some GameCube Shadow Drops, which of course are just Virtual Console stuff. Pokemon Coliseum being one of those. And then I guess that's the only one he specifically mentions for GameCube Shadow Drops, because it's the only one he knows for sure. There could be any number of other games. We know that there's a handful of games that they've already said will be coming in time. Pokemon Coliseum was one of those. Pokemon Gale XD was another one, but he says that's coming later. They're just doing one at a time. But he also said that Metaphor ReFantazio will be there, as well as Death Stranding Director's Cut, and a Switch 2 version of The Witcher 3. So I'm guessing it's basically just, an upgrade to the existing Switch version. Though obviously they would probably also have the ability people would have the ability to just buy straight up the Switch 2 version of the game. So, and then he also said he doesn't know if he's coming before or after Donkey Kong, but that is the Direct itself. He doesn't know if it's coming before or after Donkey Kong releases next month, but there's going to be Metroid's release date, and then the one more thing is supposed to be a teaser card for the next Animal Crossing coming out next year. So I guess first let's kind of talk about those things that he says are supposedly coming, and then we can talk about some things that we either expect to see or would like to see.
All right. So honestly, I think that everything that was mentioned is very probable. It all makes sense. It's all reasonable. It's nothing that's extraordinary or out of the way. Pokemon Coliseum, it's in line with what is coming so far. We've been getting some GameCube games coming to NSO, and that's just another title, so that's understandable. Metaphor, I definitely think that's definitely a possibility. They couldn't really do that with the Switch one, but since we've got Switch 2, that's definitely doable. And Death Stranding, that's big. It's definitely, I was not expecting to see that, but it makes sense. I wonder if Kojima Productions is going to work on that port personally, or if they're going to pass that on to another party to port it. If they would even have faith in another party to do it, that would definitely be interesting. But if it comes, that's pretty good. And especially with DLSS, they should definitely be able to do something like a consistent 40 frames per second, I would say. With the game. Now, Witcher 3, it's not a surprise. I'm not surprised to see it. I feel like they definitely would have. I definitely feel like that you could get a an upgrade for the game if you have it already for Switch 1. But what I'm curious about, which I feel like would be the case, is if they would have the game completely on Kart. Because I know that for Witcher 3 on the Switch 1, it was all on Kart from what I've heard. I know that they put Cyberpunk 2077 all on Kart, which is incredible. So I almost feel like they would put Witcher 3 Switch 2 Edition all on Kart too, since that's sort of like what CD Projekt Red has been doing so far, based on their track record. So I wouldn't be surprised. I would be more surprised if they didn't have it physical, all in Kart than if they did have it. So that we'll definitely have to see. Metroid Prime release date. Yeah, I believe. Even if this wasn't part of, the rumor, I would have said right off the bat, yeah, we're gonna get a release date for this game, because we're already halfway through the year and all we've known so far is just coming 2025. So we're gonna have to get it eventually at some point. Now, personally, I'm going to predict September, maybe October for Metroid Prime 4 release date. That's my guess right now. Granted, I'm not certain what games are coming out around that time, so I don't know if Nintendo is going to base the release date based on the games released around that time frame. So I could be wrong, but that's just, for me personally, that's why I feel like would be the time they would do something like that. But we'll definitely have to see in that regard. Animal Crossing, that's I was not going to expect to hear anything like so soon regarding that, but I think that definitely sort of makes sense to have a new game come out. Hopefully this time around they will include cloud save support, so that way people won't have any issues with it like they did with the previous game. But we'll see what happens with that. And I mean I don't know if this has ever worked in any type of Animal Crossing game before, but it would be cool, I would think, if they could have some sort of transfer, even if it's not like everything, if you could have some sort of like save transfer from say the previous game into this game. I think that would be a cool feature, even if it's not anything big. If there's something you could transfer over, that would be nice. Like, some games do it, some games don't. For the games that do offer that type of thing, I think it's great, so that way if you've put in a lot of progress into a game, not knowing that you would be able to know that, hey, all the progress I spent here, I can transfer that over, so at least something carries over, and it's not like everything's trapped in this one game. But that's just me. Now, as far as just like general, or I guess my expectations, I know this is probably something that people would say it's not gonna happen. Well, actually, no. Okay, actually, yeah, I'm gonna say it. They're probably going to announce Wind Waker HD / Twilight Princess HD. That's my guess. They're going to have that as a combo pack. They're gonna have it be at least 4K 60 FPS. I'm going to, maybe they'll have 1080p 120, but I'm not certain if they'll do that or not. I'm not certain. They could do that, but they might not. But I'm going to say at least they're going to just do 4K 60 FPS docked and 1080p 60 FPS handheld mode. That's just what I'm guessing on that end. As far as like anything else that they could possibly show, or anything that seems believable, I honestly, I just feel like it's going to be possibly, it would just be more Switch 2 versions of games that have come out already on the Switch 1. I mean, I'm trying to think if there's like some other game that has come out that had a that possibly had a early PS4 release or something like that, and they're going to announce a full remaster or something like that for modern consoles, and the Switch 2 is going to be the console where they announce it for all platforms. Like, I feel like there's going to be something like that, but I can't think of any game off the top of my head that would be that game. But yeah, that's probably like the only other big announcement that I could think of right now. Now, I guess one last thing, and I mean, granted, they only teased it before, so I don't know if they would really be ready to announce anything, because it's probably still too early. Will be as if they talked about maybe briefly about the Kirby racing game, but it still might be too early to say anything else about that.
Yeah.
That's really everything that I can think of that they could be discussing.
All right. Well, I mean, first, of course, I'll talk about the rumors, but then I'll go into my predictions, and I'm just going to throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what sticks. So, first of all, Metaphor ReFantazio, I have always thought this was coming to Switch 2. I've been saying that for the past year or whatever, that it would be coming to Switch 2. So I expect it. I will say that unless the game is fully included on the cartridge, I'm just going to buy digital, because I'm not in favor of the game key cards thing. Like, it was fine when it was a few games here and there, and if I got them cheap or whatever. And I guess I would still say, if eventually I find a physical copy that's really cheap, I'd go for it, even though it's not all on the cartridge. But I'm not going to spend $70 on a game key card. It's not worth it to me. Death Stranding Director's Cut. Oh, man. I mean, I definitely would buy that for Switch 2. Potentially even day one. Especially because of the fact that I've never actually bought Death Stranding. Well, no, that's not true. I did buy a Steam key for it to give away, but the original version I got from someone else, because they were just giving it away because they had bought Humble Bundle, I think, and it came with that game, and they didn't need a copy, so they just asked if anybody wanted it. I said, yeah, I'll take it. And then I eventually got to it. But same thing though, if unless the game is fully on the cartridge, I'll just be buying it digitally. I think, willing to pay full price on that, just because I do really, really like that game. And I mean, I would hope it would be cheaper, because of the fact that, especially because, just came to Xbox not that long ago and it wasn't full price, so it shouldn't be full price, theoretically. But I guess we'll wait and see. Witcher 3 having a Switch 2 version, yeah, I'd say that's pretty much a given. Makes perfect sense. And I'm sure CD Projekt Red will put the full game on the cartridge, because they've been good about doing that stuff so far. So, Metroid Prime release date, of course, obviously, there's no reason why this wouldn't be shown. I would say I think October is probably going to be when it would come out, just based on what we've kind of seen with history, or at least with Dread, came out in October. I mean, obviously, of course, we had Prime Remastered that was in February, but nevertheless, I do think October is possible. And you could be right about September, because I think September was when Samus Returns came out on the 3DS, if I remember correctly. So I guess we'll wait and see either way on that. The idea of a new Animal Crossing coming in 2026, I'd say that's actually pretty believable, because remember the last Animal Crossing came out in 2020. So there's been a good amount of time between. I mean, I think the only reason we didn't get an Animal Crossing on the Wii U was because the Wii U was a complete failure. And so they ended up just moving it to the Switch, and it's good that they did because it definitely sold extremely well, and it was a great game. Hence the reason why my wife is playing it hardcore all over again. After having started from scratch, she's still playing it basically every day. Though I will say, for me personally, while I'd be willing to try out the new Animal Crossing, I'm not gonna buy a second Switch for it. If we get it, which, you know, that would depend on the price, around the time that it releases, I would probably just surrender my Switch 2 to my wife, and she can play to her heart's content, and I'll just play other games. Because I'm not buying another Switch 2 until there's an OLED version. And even then, I may not buy it because I'm just kind of tired of Nintendo's shenanigans and their ridiculousness with how they charge for things. But we'll kind of see what happens. I'm not saying that, oh, definitively I'm definitely not buying another Switch 2, because like I don't know. I know that there's going to be some games that are worthwhile. I'm just hoping that there are more great games that actually make it feel a little more worthwhile to me, because right now I'm just like, I'm playing Switch 1 games and I'm enjoying them, but it's not really worth buying a Switch 2 for that. I needed somewhere to play it, and it made more sense to buy the new thing that still plays the games than buy an old thing and then eventually have to buy the new thing later on. But I don't know. Whatever. All right, but let me get into my predictions here. And once again, I'm just gonna throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. So, with Metaphor ReFantazio being all but guaranteed, I'm gonna say they're also gonna announce Persona 3 Reload. I'd say that that's pretty much guaranteed. Not necessarily that they'll announce it this time, but it's going to come to Switch 2. It's just a question of when. That's all there is to that. I think that they'll probably also confirm that Persona 4 Revival is coming to Switch 2. Even though, of course, we have just that brief teaser trailer from Xbox and confirmation that it's also going to PC and PlayStation. I think that we will I think that we could very well see Final Fantasy 15 finally making its way over to Switch, because that's a game that just never got ported, and 16. And I mean, neither of those. Well, 15 could be shadow dropped. 16 will definitely not be shadow dropped because it's going to need some more time in the oven. But we'll probably get a release date for Final Fantasy VII Remake. I think that there's a good chance of that. I think we could end up seeing. Gosh, I had some more games on my mind, and like I'm suddenly blanking. Maybe we'll get confirmation of when the update for Xenoblade Chronicles X is coming out. Confirmation that Death Stranding 2 is coming to this. No. That one I don't think would happen, since it's like only just coming out for the PS5 this week. Been getting great reviews, of course, but that was to be expected, from my perspective at least. Oh, here's a really out there prediction that's not impossible, but highly unlikely. This will be the place where the Gravity Rush remasters are announced as coming to Switch 2, and of course, obviously PlayStation and PC. Not Xbox, but yes, my very out there prediction that will probably not happen, because while I don't think it's impossible we could see these games on Switch 2, I do think it's extremely unlikely that they would be announced at the Switch 2 event rather than PlayStation, though it would be really funny if they were. Either way, it's not impossible. I mean, yeah. I'm putting that one very low on the possibility that it would be announced here, even though I think that there is at least some possibility it could still come over. I mean, you have other Japan studio games that have come to the Switch. Freedom Wars, Patapon. I can't remember if there. I think Everybody's Golf or whatever that game's called, I believe, or Hot Shots, whatever it was called. I mean, that's also Japan studio. It's like you got multiple Japan studio games. Why not put these games that would be perfect Nintendo Switch games? I mean, they'd be perfect on both platforms. It'd be harder probably to run the second Gravity Rush on the regular Switch. The first one I think would be fine because the original came out on the Vita. But the remasters, Switch 2 should run just fine. Hopefully they could get Gravity Rush 2 up to 60 FPS, which would be fantastic because Gravity Rush 2, what I played of it was really good, but it's 30 FPS. Whereas Gravity Rush Remastered was, of course, not only did it improve the visuals over the Vita version, but it was 60 FPS and had better controls. So, yeah, that's my really out there one. Gosh, I know that there was some other ones that I had on my brain. I can't remember if they confirmed Final Fantasy Tactics, the remaster of that, if that's coming to the Switch too, or if it's just been confirmed for PC, PlayStation, and Xbox.
I don't know.
I have to look that up. I can't quite remember if it was confirmed for Switch 2, but if it hasn't been confirmed for Switch 2, I think that it could be confirmed. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't. I mean, it would probably just be, a brief blurb because it's already been announced, so it wouldn't hurt anything. And they could still, confirm it yet again if it's already been confirmed. Gosh, I know I had some other ones in my head that we could see potentially there. Oh, Mario Galaxy 2 coming to the Switch 2 as a remaster. That's more of a pipe dream because I want it. But it's like they bring it. Oh, Mario Galaxy, do like a Mario Galaxy collection, and do both with mouse controls as an option to for the pointer stuff. Because I mean the gyro worked fine for the Switch version of Galaxy, but have the pointer controls too. It would probably work, or the mouse controls would probably work very well for that. Even though I probably would still end up using the gyro controls because the little bit I tried playing of Galaxy 2 on the Wii, or the Wii version of it, on the Wii U specifically, I was not a fan of using the pointer controls. Most of the controls I just didn't like the motion controls for that game. Like, it was fine for the pointer parts, but for the rest of it, I didn't like it very much. I thought it felt a lot better with regular button controls and just using the gyro for the pointer stuff on the Switch version of Galaxy 1. So, yeah, I think the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD things could definitely be shown. Metroid Prime 2 and 3 remasters, or ports in some form or another. Even if it's just bare bones, do bare bones. Shadow Drop of Metroid Prime 2 and 3, or Shadow Drop of 2 with a physical version coming later, and 3 confirmed to be coming as well, like a month before Metroid Prime 4 drops, so that you can have the entire collection all on Switch and Switch 2. Switch or Switch 2. Switch and or Switch 2. Yeah, I'm trying to think of what else there could be. I can't remember if there was anything else. I feel like there was something else that you mentioned that made me think of a game, and I can't remember what it was. But I'm sure that there will be something that Nintendo's charging way too much for some old game that they're bringing back and charging too much money for. Or charging for upgrades that should be free upgrades. But, you know. That's Nintendo for you. I think that's everything I have, though.
Okay. Now something that, well, actually, before I say that, I did look it up, and Final Fantasy Tactics Remastered is coming to Switch 2.
Okay.
Also Switch 1 as well, so that has been confirmed. So, maybe we'll, as you said, they'll just touch up more on that during announcements. But something that I, thought about was maybe Doom: The Dark Ages.
Oh,
that
yeah.
could be something that gets announced.
Yeah. I think there's a good chance that could happen. I mean, I would say it probably wouldn't come to Switch 2 until 2026, but they could definitely do that. That reminds me, though, another thing that I was going to predict is that they will do a Dark Souls bundle that will have all 3 Dark Souls games, the remasters, 60 FPS, or if you already own Dark Souls Remastered on the Switch, you get the upgrade to get 60 FPS for free, and then 2 and 3 are discounted digitally if you do that. And that is a pipe dream that will probably never happen, but I would happily go for it. Even if they made it so that you had to buy each game separately, I would buy 2 and 3 again for that. I mean, I wouldn't want to repurchase Dark Souls 1, but I would probably be willing to pay an upgrade fee to get 60. Maybe not. I guess probably not. But Dark Souls 2 and 3, like, you charge like $40 a piece for those. I think that's not too bad. Have those ones on there, and then have a good excuse to buy more Dark Souls.
And you mentioned that now.
Sekiro too.
Yep, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking if they put that one there as well, wow, that would definitely be something. And then, if they would decide later down the road after they put out those games, if they decide, you know what, since we haven't put this game on Switch 1, how about Armored Core 6? We'll just give you that as well later on as well.
And
so it's
they should, theoretically, they should have a release date for Elden Ring, because we haven't gotten that yet.
You're right. That is very true. We should have a release date on that, because did they at least say it was coming out this year, or did they just say I can't remember if they gave a
release date on it. I mean, I know that they said Dusk Bloods is not till next year, but I don't think they said anything about Elden Ring. But I would guess, since it was confirmed at that point, that they had already been working on it and that it was more or less either ready or close to ready.
If that's the case, then.
Now, I will say, if they do the games fully on the cartridge for any of those games, I'm buying them. Because I want to support that idea of actually using that 64 gig cart for the games that can actually, make use of that much space and everything, and actually having the full games on the carts. Especially when you have people like Square Enix who choose to, I guess understandably, went for the game key card because they didn't want to shell out for 64 gig carts for Bravely Default, which is like a teeny tiny game. It's like it's a 2 gig game, and they're trying to make them get a 64 gig cart for that. That's like, I can understand why, at least from a developer standpoint, why they wouldn't want to do that. But for the bigger games,
better do it. Yeah, like Final Fantasy 7.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, I would think theoretically, Final Fantasy 7 Remake, if they since they shouldn't have like 4K textures and all that, it shouldn't be anywhere near as big as it is on PC, because on PC it's massive. Of course, Rebirth is even more massive, but yeah. Starfield. There we go. There's another prediction. Starfield and the Halo Master Chief Collection.
Oh yeah, yes.
This is the first place where the Master Chief Collection goes that's not Xbox or PC.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, after that, if they did do that, then it would probably be confirmed for PlayStation after the fact as well. But
and maybe even just have like a limited edition Halo Switch.
That would be pretty cool. Trying to think if there's any others. Oh, Liza P. And Black Myth Wukong.
Yeah, and that would probably
Baldur's Gate 3
be doing pretty well. Yeah, that too. Like Black Myth, I think would probably do well. Probably even better than the Asus Ally, considering the fact that NVIDIA GPUs have been doing better than AMD ones. So I would imagine that one should theoretically perform well enough on the Switch too.
Oblivion Remastered. I'm just throwing everything at the wall.
I mean, it makes sense.
Oh, you know what? Actually, this could be, and I mean this in all seriousness, this could be where they finally reveal Hi-Fi Rush. Because it was supposed to be coming to Switch in some form anyway before. There was like, stuff to indicate that, but of course it didn't actually come to Switch, and I don't know if it'll still come to Switch 1, but Switch 2, there's no reason why it shouldn't. I mean, yes, of course. Are we going to get all these announcements at the Nintendo Direct? Extremely unlikely. I mean, like, I would be surprised if we got 2 of them, apart from the ones that are, like, more obvious. But a lot of these, I don't think they're going to do it. I mean, like, I highly doubt that FromSoft is going to announce a whole bunch of their games coming over. I mean, they've already announced Elden Ring, which is huge, and a brand new game. The likelihood that we'll also see Dark Souls 2 and 3 and Sekiro and Armored Core all coming over. Yeah, probably not.
No.
But once again,
you know what? That's where they also announced Bloodborne Remastered.
Yes, Bloodborne Remastered announced at the Nintendo Direct, coming to Switch 2, PS5, and PC. Yeah, no, that will never happen. And I hope, and Sony, please prove me wrong when I say that it will never happen. I'm saying never in hopes that it will actually happen. We could potentially see a new 3D Mario. I mean, this would be a good place to do it because it's 40th anniversary of the original Super Mario Brothers. Yeah, because that came out in '85 along with the Famicom. So, yeah, 40th anniversary. There's no reason why they couldn't do that. They should. I'm not saying they will, but they should.
And the last 3D Mario was what?
Odyssey.
Yeah, so that was 8 years ago then, essentially.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I mean, technically you could say Bowser's Fury because that was added on. I mean, in addition for 3D World, but that was also just kind of like a mini version of the game instead of the full thing. So, Luigi's Mansion 4. I mean, it's like, hey, 40th anniversary of Mario. They might as well announce a bunch of Mario projects. I mean, why not? Come on. They could announce that Mario Maker 2 is going to have mouse controls just added as a free update that they probably would charge for it. It's like, yeah. I don't know. I'm thinking of all the possibilities because, hey, maybe with all these different things we're predicting, we'll get like 10 accurate because there's so many games that we're predicting. And they could be like, see, we knew it. We knew it. We had insider information, man. I don't know. I'm sure there's some other stuff. Let me pull up my Steam library, see if there's other games that I'm forgetting to bring up here. Let's see what else we got that could be announced. Expedition 33. Ooh. That would be a good one to announce.
That would be a good one.
And of course, it's an amazing game, so not that I would expect to see that before next year, but you know, it could be announced. Mass Effect Legendary Edition, so the trilogy, that could happen. Near Replicant. Actual native versions of the Kingdom Hearts games.
Oh, yes.
Devil May Cry 5. I'm literally just going through my Steam library and seeing other games could potentially be announced. Let's see here. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of possibilities. It's more a question of what and when than anything else, because I do think that we'll see a lot of announcements, or you know, there's a lot of games that could come over because of just the potentials with everything. But yeah.
Indiana Jones and the
oh yeah, Indiana Jones and the Freaky Circle. Control getting a native version.
Ooh,
instead of just a streaming version. Diablo 4. That could definitely happen. Of course, we talked about that before as a rumor, so I would not be surprised by that. It'd be good, but I wouldn't be surprised by it. Final Fantasy 13 trilogy. I mean, why not? You know.
Wait, was 13, or at least 13.1 not ported over to the Switch one? Okay.
No. None of the 13 games have left 360 and PS3. Well, other than, you know, PC. They're on PC as well. But Ghostwire Tokyo, Ghost Runner 2. Ghost Runner 2 would be great. I would very much like to see what kind of things they could do to improve that, because it runs well enough on the Steam Deck. I mean, I can get a solid 40 FPS, but the original version of Ghost Runner on the Switch was like, woof, that's rough.
Maybe also give a Switch 2 version then.
Well, yeah, that's what I was saying.
Oh, okay.
I see a Switch 2 version of Ghost Runner. Yeah, that would be nice if they did that. I would definitely be all for checking that out, especially if it was, you know, just a free or even paid upgrade. I'd be willing to pay $10 to upgrade Ghost Runner for the Switch 2, especially because I still have the physical copy of that, and you know, I love Ghost Runner. I'd love an excuse to replay it again. Yeah, I mean, there's so many possible games we could see, even if the majority of them are not probable. But trying to think if there's anything else that's like worth even bringing up here.
Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order.
Yeah, that's actually very possible. In fact, they could very easily do both of them, because the second game did eventually come to PS4 and Xbox One.
And yeah,
wasn't there at launch, but eventually came over. I don't think it will be announced until next year, but most likely whenever they do the next Metal Gear Solid collection. I mean, I know that's going to be on Switch 2 because the first one was on Switch 1. And of course, the next Metal Gear Solid collection probably would have Peace Walker 4 and 5, which would be great because those are great games. And 4, of course, is trapped on the PS3 right now. So, it'd be great to see that. But Middle Earth, Shadow of Mordor, and Shadow of War. I'm only in the O's of my list.
Now, this hasn't been ported over to Xbox, but it would be interesting if this was brought over to the Switch. Neo 1 and
Yeah, I
possibly
thought
2.
about that too. That'd be interesting, but I don't know. I can't remember if Neo 2 made its way over to the Xbox. I know Neo 3 is going to be on Xbox. Because I'm pretty sure it is. So you would think theoretically that they would have 1 and 2 as well.
Right.
But I don't know. Oh, Red Dead Redemption 2. How can we forget about that? That one could very easily be. I mean, I think there's a decent chance that could be announced. I mean, well, I think it'll come over. It's just a matter of when, whether it would be announced that soon or not. But yeah, I'd say that's pretty much guaranteed to come over. Yeah, man, too many games. Always. Always and forever. All right, I think that's enough. I don't know that there's much more we can predict that's actually going to come over. I could definitely think of some other old games that I would love to see, like the Watch Dogs games, because they had the first one on the Wii U, and the second one never came to a Nintendo platform. And to me, the second one was like fantastic. I loved it so much. And the third one was, well, I haven't played it yet because it didn't interest me as much with the rotating randomly generated protagonists that are people you could play as. I didn't really care for that concept. I bought the game when it was $8. Still haven't played it, but yeah. Anyway, you got any other thoughts? Any other predictions?
No, I think I've also exhausted my potential list of games.
I think tomorrow what I'm gonna do is, while I'm editing, I'm gonna write down a list of everything we predicted, and then whenever that next Nintendo Direct pops up, we can like do bingo and see if we
we
happen to get any of those. So I'm sure we have enough predictions to fill out a bingo card. So. All right, well, let's get into our recommendations and dissuasions. So go ahead and start us off.
All right, so I've got a couple recommendations for today. First one is going to be stay hydrated. Summer's here now. It's getting really warm out, so it's really important to make sure you keep a lot of fluids in you. So drink plenty of water. Even if you think that you've got enough, see, you're getting hydrated now. Already following the recommendation. But even if you think you have enough, just make sure you drink a little bit more, just so that way you don't get dehydrated and suffer any ill heat effects. So definitely stay hydrated. That's my first recommendation. Second one is going to be, if you are up, and I thought about this when I was working on my computer. If you are upgrading your PC components, particularly, GPUs, since that's the one people tend to focus on the most, and if you're selling your old GPU, I recommend holding on to it until after you've received your new GPU and after you confirm that it works, because nothing would be worse than you either, having a delay between getting your GPU, or if you do get it, and you have to RMA it because it's not working, and then you're stuck without GPU. So definitely, I would recommend holding on to your old GPU or what other component you're replacing until you are certain that whatever you're getting works, and then after that, I would say, all right, go ahead and sell it and whatnot. And maybe even if you feel like you can afford to, I would say maybe hold on to one spare component just in case you might possibly need to swap out something randomly for whatever reason. But definitely, I would say hold on to it at least until you're certain that your new component works and that you actually have it. But yeah, those are my recommendations.
All right, good stuff. And yeah, I think it's always a good idea to hold on to your old parts for a bit. Anytime you're doing upgrades of any kind, because if something's faulty, you don't want to be in a spot where you just basically are unable to use it. Like I remember when I had the problems where I was when I was upgrading my PC, and I think, let's see here, that was, of course, there was the initial one years ago when I upgraded my CPU and I didn't have thermal paste, and so and then I think it was also that I didn't have a DisplayPort cable, and so it's like I had a twofold problem there of not being able to connect stuff. And so I ended up having, after putting everything together, I ended up having to take it back apart and put all my old parts back in. And then of course this last time that I upgraded, finding out that the motherboard I had was just not going to work because everything was not plugging in properly, and then those contacts were bent and all that, and I ended up having to put it all back together. So yeah, definitely good advice. All right, my recommendations. First of all, with Guacamelee 2 and really with Guacamelee 1 as well, if you are on one of those ascending platform challenges, make sure that if you miss a jump and are falling, veer over to the far side of the screen as much as you can. Do your best to not land on a platform below, because if you land on a platform below, then you will have to redo all the stuff that you did to get up to the higher platform. But if you veer off the side of the screen, you'll just spawn back at the higher platform where you stopped before. So that saves you the trouble of having to redo portions of the jumping, because there's definitely spots where, like, man, if I had had to redo it, I would have just hated life because of how long it took me to get through a particular jumping puzzle. So yes, that is my first recommendation. The second recommendation I have, even if you're not into mobile games, right now there are there's 9 different Sega classics that you can get for free on both Android and iOS because they're going to be delisted. So look those up. There's games like Crazy Taxi, Sonic 1, Sonic 2, Sonic CD, Golden Axe, Shining Force, I believe, was another one. And I can't remember what else. But anyway, it's just a handful of different Sega games. They're free. I mean, you can use a regular controller with them. You can use a controller attachment like what I have. Or you can just play with a touchscreen if you like playing that way. I don't. But, it is an option. And hey, they don't cost you anything. They're being delisted. You might as well grab them for free while you can, even if you never play. So that is everything I have for recommendations.
Those very good.
Yeah. Give me your dissuasions.
All right. So just one dissuasion for me, and that is going to be, unless you absolutely have a very good reason to, do not buy a Mac. Like, do not buy a MacBook. Do not buy any type of Mac, just because of the fact that you are so limited by what you can do in there because of the fact that you have to go through Apple to get anything done. Like I said, the fact that I couldn't even update my internet browser or even download a new browser because I had to use the App Store to do that. And, I can't just go and manually download it from the internet, which, again, I can't do in the first place because they can't access the internet. It's ridiculous that you have to go through Apple just to get your computer to work right. Whereas, if you use, Windows or, Linux, you can do whatever you want on there because you're left to your own device. I mean, sure, you have to go through, like, say, Edge or Internet Explorer, but you can go ahead, download Chrome or Firefox or Brave or whatever browser you want and just, like, have at it. You don't need to go, hey, Microsoft, can I go and download this browser through your store only? No, you do whatever you want. So get a PC instead of a MacBook. Like I said, unless you have a good reason to, like you're doing some sort of media production, that I can understand. But even nowadays, like, PC, you're good enough to where you can get good parts and you can, like, have the same type of performance you can have with a Mac. So there's no excuse, in my opinion, as to why you would need to absolutely get a MacBook, unless you're just that ingrained into that cult-like mentality of some Apple users I've experienced, and I might even be related to some, but hey, that's just what that is. But yes, absolutely do not buy a MacBook if you do not have to, especially considering the fact that a lot of them are just overly priced anyway for what you're getting. So yeah, do not buy one.
Yeah, pretty much the only thing you get with it, I mean, you get that unified ecosystem, which is great if you have a lot of products that are all related to that, and, like, I can understand it from that standpoint. But the problem is that if you lock yourself into that ecosystem, you're just punishing yourself further over time because you're getting yourself stuck. And if you just break free, a lot of times you can still use a lot of your Apple devices on Windows. It's not as smooth of an experience necessarily, but if you break free, then suddenly you have so much more freedom than you ever had being in that Apple ecosystem. I mean, like, one of the things that came up, so when my dad passed, after my mom passed away, we went through all of my mom and dad's old stuff, and one of the things I came across was my dad's old iPod Touch. And initially I could get into it, but then it got to a certain point where, like, his old passwords weren't working, and unfortunately we just didn't seem to have what we needed for me to get into it. I just wanted to check and see the stuff that my dad listened to, and just go through all his old stuff, and I can't get into it. And the only way for me to get it unlocked is with a court order. I have to get a court order to be able to unlock it when my parents are gone. That's not a problem I have on the PC side. It's like there are ways to get through, and yes, sometimes it's going to be a little more complicated than others. I mean, and is it like a huge deal? No, but at the same time, I hate the fact that there's this electronic device. I can't even factory reset it without being able to get into it in the first place. At least I'm pretty sure I can't. Maybe I'm remembering wrong there. But either way, it was just like I just wanted to get in and look at the stuff my dad had on there, and I guess just kind of connect to him that way. That was just something I wanted to do, and it was pretty recent. And it's like, oh nope, you can't. The passwords we have from my mom's old files, none of them seem to work, and I remember what it was. So it's that I couldn't get in without a password, but because it had been a while since anyone had logged in on there, they had to send a password reset thing to either my mom or dad's email. But the email password we had was not the right password, so we couldn't get in. We can't get into that or reset the password we could reset the password, but the password reset email would go to my other parents' email address that we don't have access to. And so then there's no way for me to get in. And the only way to get Apple to unlock it, I believe, is with some kind of court order. And it's like, I understand the whole privacy aspect. Like, I appreciate that. I really do appreciate that. But when it comes to deceased family members, it's like, I just want to check out this stuff, and I can't do it because you guys make it a little too complicated. And yeah, anyway, It's like, if all they wanted was for me to just send a death certificate, it's like, okay, I could do that. That's not a big deal. I have the information I need, but I hate it not being able to be used. I did, on a side note with that, I found my old iPod video in a box, and I charged that up, and it was kind of interesting getting, like, reminders of the stuff I listened to, you know, like 15 plus years ago, and like finding old podcasts and old episodes of old audiobooks, like of Wheel of Time series, you know, where I was before my son was born, because the last time I really used this was before I got a smartphone, and I got a smartphone in my first smartphone in like summer of 2015, before my oldest was born. So, but it's kind of fun going back to it, because I remember, like, when I originally bought this thing, before that I had been using a Dell digital jukebox, and eventually just got to a point where it's like, okay, you know, this thing's a little limited, kind of bulky, that sort of thing. But then I saw the iPod video, and it was like, this thing can play videos, and there was like, I could get strong bad emails on here. It was like, and then I could put movies on here. It's like, oh, it was mind blowing. And that was, you know, like 2006 when I bought this. It's almost 20 years ago. But yeah, it's just like, I mean, it's kind of fun going back to old electronics and just, you know, having all those like memories of all that old stuff. Like I remember, I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent. When I first got this thing, it was the summer before I met my wife, and I had gotten like these speakers that you could attach, that you could plug this into, because this thing, of course, doesn't have its own speakers. You have to either have a headphone jack or plug it into external speakers. And I remember that I was working the 3 to 11 shift at my job, which is working at a grocery store. And when I would walk home, I would plug this in and then just blast music as I was walking home. And some great stuff back in those days. I'm probably going to end up setting this thing up in the garage whenever I get everything set up for the kids, you know, as part of our musical options, you know, with all the stereo system and all that stuff. But anyway, yeah, so all right, my dissuasion, don't buy the DBrand kill switch grip for the Switch 2 right now. Most likely it's already been basically delisted to where you can't buy it at this point, but just be careful not to grab one right now because of the problems that it has, and hopefully they'll have a better one in the not too distant future that they'll start selling, and then people can get, you know, quality product that's not going to cause their Joy-Cons to detach very easily. So, completely different side note, because I just remembered, I forgot to mention it earlier. So, you know, a couple weeks ago for Father's Day, they did special breakfast for the dads at church, and they did breakfast sliders was one of the things, which inspired me to make my own. So I made some, what was that, yesterday. I did it with, you know, did some of them with homemade bacon, some of them with homemade sausage, and you know, made my own like little bitty 1 ounce sausage patties, and then you know, broke up the bacon, of course. And I was trying out an experiment with how to do the eggs to where you could have like just single egg patties for each without them being too big, you know, fitting well on a Hawaiian roll, because that's what I was using for the sliders. So what I did was I did a tablespoon, I scrambled up the eggs and then used a tablespoon to scoop that out for the egg patty, and it worked part of the time. I mean, like some of them ended up like a good size, and some of them ended up a little small, because it was hard to get like it to fill up the tablespoon all the way, just because of the way that eggs act on spoons and that sort of thing. But anyway, turned out good. Did some of them with Swiss and some of them with cheddar, and I added pickled jalapenos to mine individually when I ate them, and that's a very good choice. Anyway, that is everything I have. All right, so where can people find you?
They can find me on my channel. I am Xeracon. That's IAMXERACON. So youtube.com/@IamXeracon. No new content right now, of course, but well, and I won't know when the new content comes out. That'll, of course, determine when I get my computer fixed. But hopefully that won't be too much longer, and then everything can be back on schedule. But of course, what I have planned is just a comparison between an older GPU like the 6650 XT and the current 90 RX 9060 XT 16 gigabyte variant, just for people who might want to upgrade if you are a budget type of gamer. And then after that, of course, once I get back to that, working on finishing up Expedition 33 so I can give a full review on that. But yeah, that's all I have in the works right now, and of course some music stuff later down the line.
All right, fantastic. All right, well, you can find me on my YouTube gaming channel at FrozenGamer87. Nothing new has come out in a while, but there are various things that are, at least in my brain, I'm getting closer and closer to hopefully recording stuff. It's just figuring out when I'm going to do it. And I'm kind of thinking if I have the time, I will try to do at least one or two of the things while I'm at my in-laws. But there's a variety of factors that will affect whether or not that actually happens. Either way, there is plenty of content planned. And of course, if we do end up getting confirmation of games like Metaphor ReFantazio coming to the Switch 2, as well as Death Stranding, those will be comparisons I'll be doing in the future, and I'll try to prioritize those ones a little bit more. Obviously, I still have the ones that was originally going to be my last two for the Switch OLED that I ended up not doing and just decided to push back. I'm not sure if I'm going to get those done anytime soon. It's mostly just because I know that the Switch versions of those games have not been updated for the Switch 2. So we'll have to wait and see what happens if I do those anytime soon. They'll get done eventually. It's just a question of when. But I may be prioritizing other games first, depending on what kind of reveals and releases and everything we get. So there should be more of those in the future. I'm just not sure exactly what form they're going to take, whether they're still going to be longer things or if I'm going to chop them up to make them a bit more digestible than the previous ones. So, plus, take a lot less time to put together. Otherwise, there's also the YouTube channel for the podcast, which is at the Orange Box Podcast on YouTube. The podcast is also on Rumble, does not have a custom URL there, but in both cases, the video version comes out 7 a.m. Central Time every Friday morning, barring any technical issues. Thankfully, things have been going smoothly so far. I mean, as of late, so hopefully that will continue, but just be aware that it may or may not end up being an issue. Next week especially is going to be interesting because I'll be at my in-laws where their internet is very slow, and so I will probably have to go to a different location to be able to do my uploading instead of going to their place. Either that or set up a mobile hotspot and use my 5G because it will definitely be faster than using their internet. So we'll kind of see what happens with that. Then also there is the audio-only version of the podcast, which goes live on every major audio podcast platform, including Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. I can't remember if I said Pandora, but that's one of the other places as well. And that is normally 12 a.m. Central Time every Friday, once again, barring any technical issues. And then lastly, I do have my YouTube cooking channel, Not Authentic But Delicious. That's YouTube at NABD Cooking. And no new recipes for a while, but there are around 40 recipes currently on the channel. There will be more in the future. I just don't know when. And there's lots of factors that affect the timing for that. So we'll see. I'm just going to be very clear. When it comes to YouTube, YouTube is not a priority for me anymore. It's entirely a hobby, and that's why I keep doing the podcast, because I enjoy doing the podcast. I mean, as it stands right now, this is the longest running podcast I've been a part of, both in terms of, and mostly in terms of concurrent weeks, because this is technically our 92nd week in a row, because we had 2 weeks where we had technical issues that prevented the episode from being usable. But even with my longest podcast before that, it was not every week. It was not consistent, and that's a big part of why it did not last. Not the only reason, but one of the big reasons. So anyway, we'll see when I start putting out more consistent content. I'm not promising anything one way or another. Right now, I'm just focused on things that are more important in life, and I'll do stuff as I am ready to do it, and when I hopefully once I figure out I kind of get my rhythm going again, I can start having consistent content once again. So that is everything, I believe. All right, last chance. Any final thoughts?
No, sir.
All right, well, I am the Frozen Gamer 87. That is I am Zeracon. We are the Orange Box Podcast. And until next time, don't count your Nintendo Direct eggs before they hatch. Orange Box Podcast out.